I would like to thank everyone who has come today and those who have joined us on Zoom call as well. We are sitting here today celebrating the wonders that Hashem has done for my family. I hope nobody goes through any sorrows, but it has been a major opportunity because through the difficult times, Hashem has revealed himself to us. It's truly an unbelievable thing. And Baruch Hashem, he has taken us through the tzara hand in hand and brought us out with Nisim. Baruch atah Hashem shechiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu azman hazeh. I would like to thank the community as a whole for all the unbelievable support that was given to my family through the tough times. The suppers that were given to us for a whole year and the Friday afternoon kugel made us feel so supported and so much ahavas Yisrael. I cannot thank you all enough. The Tehillim that was said from Nechama is no doubt why we had this result. Hundreds of times Tehillim was completed, thousands of tears, and Hashem answered them in the way that we had hoped for and davened for. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. I would like to thank my Rav, Rabbi Peled, who has helped us through all of it. He fielded probably hundreds of shilos from me at all times of the day and night. He set aside time to talk things over and to keep my head straight. His Rebbetzin has been there for Nechama all this time, helping her with anything and everything that she needs. Their love for every single person is unparalleled, and it's therefore our honor to have Rabbi Peled say a few words.
It is such a simcha to be here at this Seudas mitzvah. Nothing could be a greater joy. Baruch Hashem. Over the past year, it's been a long year for all of us, but especially for the Shechters, for Nechama and Yisrael and family, and the tremendous perseverance, the Mesiras Nefesh, Emunah, Avodas Hashem, you name it, all of the mitzvahs and all of the attributes of a ma'amin, of ma'aminim.
Somebody's got to unmute him.
Nechama, if you can hear me, unmute Yisrael's phone.
I'm not going to start over.
That's good. We can hear you now.
Every process, every shaila, just wanting to do Ratzon Hashem, wanting to put in the right effort and experience the right growth, the right devotion. In the very end, the very tail end of Choshen Mishpat, the famous Ber HaGoyla expresses why it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us a mitzvah to protect ourselves and keep safe. Over the past year, we've all done unusual things that in our lifetimes we've never done before to keep safe. And it's a mitzvah when it's called for to do so. And the Ber HaGoyla explains famously, Hatam, she is here, HaTorah al Shmiras HaNefesh, the reason that the Torah commands us to protect ourselves. Mitam she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu bara es ha'olam bechazdoi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the world in His infinite kindness, lehetiv lahanivraim, in order to do good, to give kindness to all of the creatures, to all of those who's created. And what's the greatest kindness He could give to all of us? Shiyakiru gedulasai, that we could get a better appreciation, recognition of Hashem's awesomeness. V'lavoid avoidasai b'kiyu mitzvoisav b'toirasai, to give us the opportunity. How are we going to have this greater appreciation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How are we going to get to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How are we going to have the infinite life that He wants to give us? By kiyum mitzvahs and Torah. To give us the greatest reward possible for our efforts. That's the purpose that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the universe and put us all here. A person who doesn't protect themselves, who endangers themselves, doesn't take proper precautions. It's as though he's saying, I don't care what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. He wants to give me endless good. Not interested. He wants to give me infinite kindness. Doesn't interest me. I'm not interested in doing what He is asking of me to do in order to receive that endless schar. Not for me. No, thank you. There's no greatest disgrace, no greater disgrace than this. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us, I want to give you endless. I want to do for you and give you all that I have in store for you. So you have to do your best to protect yourself so that you can learn, so that you could be a Ben Torah, so that you could be Shomer Torah mitzvahs, build a family of Avodas Hashem, build your own self as Eved Hashem, so that I could give you infinite. You have to stay alive if you want to do that. And therefore the Torah commands us to protect ourselves and keep ourselves well. And I must say that in this case, the big nace that we had here fits perfectly into this model, because Yisrael and Nechama are exemplary Avdei Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given them the gift of life, B'roiv Tuvai, because they are this type of people who value Ratzon Hashem and value Avodas Hashem, and want to do more and more of only the right thing, to give of themselves for Ratzon Hashem, for their family, for the community, the Toivas B'rei Olam. And therefore, it is a tremendous joy to be here celebrating together this Nes and this Chesed Elyon. And these midos that I've expressed a fraction of, doesn't come from nowhere. It doesn't just happen that a person is awesome like this, like the two of them are. It doesn't just happen that they're just out of nowhere. These powerhouses of Emunah and of avodas Hashem and of Ratzon Hashem. This comes from a family, parents and grandparents and ancestors of role modeling, of teaching the same thing. That Yisrael and Nechama will experience lives of simcha together, to walk each of their children to the chuppah in good health, to build a bayis neman by Yisrael, and may we all celebrate their simchas together.
We're going to just be speaking straight, so feel free to eat, drink, be merry. Oh, sorry, without the mask. We're going to speak straight, so feel free to eat and drink and be merry. If you want to talk, I'm okay with that. I mean, should we shut? No? Yeah. Yeah, we're doing over the. We'll do.
Somebody else wants it.
Thank you. Yeah, enjoy. It's fine. Don't worry about it. They can get it. I'm waiting for you, Stragi. Stragi, I'm waiting for you. When Yosef was sold to the Ishmaelim, the Torah goes into detail as to what they were transporting, what the Ishmaelim were transporting. They were carrying nice smelling spices. As the famous Medrash Rabbah on this says, it wasn't normal for the Ishmaelim to be carrying anything other than some hides and some resin which has a bad smell. Rather see what Hashem did for Yosef at that time, that he gave, that these Yishmaelim were carrying sakim v'leim b'samim. What's the reason? So that the wind would blow through these spices and all the bad smells would be eliminated. Rav Moto Pogomansky explains this concept with a parable. Why is it that when one who is gravely ill and wakes up from a difficult surgery, the hoadaah and the family are full of joy? The person is still in grave danger, and just the fact that the person woke up doesn't even mean that the surgery was a success. Nevertheless, the fact that the person woke up is one small step in the person becoming well. Therefore, that waking up brings hope that is infused into the family, that all is not lost. Here too by Yosef, it is true that he was on the way to a terrible hardship of slavery. But the fact that the Yishmaelim were carrying nice smelling spices, they contained a message from Hashem. Hashem was telling Yosef, the situation may appear hopeless, but this is not true. Of course, at that time, the focus was on that he's going into slavery. But Hashem is telling him that I will be there for you, and I will take care of you throughout your whole slavery. But Baruch Mordechai Ezrahi brings out this concept, but in a little different of an angle. A surgeon and a criminal, they both yield sharp weapons. A criminal slashes indiscriminately, but a surgeon, he cuts with precision, and no more than absolutely necessary. The pleasant bright spices brought this message to Yosef. Hashem is telling Yosef, I have not abandoned you to suffering. The suffering is extremely precise and very carefully measured, and no more than absolutely necessary will come upon you. Throughout our difficult time, we have had many caravans of nice smelling spices. Time and time again, Hashem has shown us that not is all lost, and he has taken us under his wing, so to speak, and is taking care of us. Nechama had nurses that cared for her, and more importantly, cared about her in unbelievable ways. They spent countless extra time just to talk with her, do her hair, polish her nails, anything and everything just to make her a bit more comfortable. I've spoken to other people about her nurses, if this is a normal thing, and they all agree that the unbelievable care is not a regular caravan. It's a caravan full of the most pleasant spices. Nechama's doctors went above and beyond their call of duty. One day, when Nechama was a little down, the doctor doing the rounds noticed this. She cleared her schedule immediately, ignored all incoming calls, just to have a heart-to-heart with her for an hour, hour and a half. One of her doctors gave me her cell phone number, which is unheard of. Doctors do not give out numbers. Just so that the doctor can speak with another doctor that I knew to make sure that the plan that they were prescribing was a good plan of care. Most doctors would likely say, why are you questioning my plan of treatment? But not her doctor. Her doctor ended up speaking to this doctor for around 40 minutes on the phone, just so he could understand and take the time then to explain to me and give me a deeper understanding of the treatment and why that treatment was the right way to go. The mistake that the hospital made that allowed me to visit Nechama for 2 weeks during COVID, making her the only patient in the hospital to have any visitors, was not a chance accident. It was designed by Hashem, showing us that not all is lost, and he is taking care of us. I would like to thank my dear wife, Nechama, for taking care of me, even when she was stuck in the hospital. All she wanted to do when she was there was to help others. And that is how she passed her time. If someone needed food for a meal train, she would make sure that she took a spot. If someone had something going on and needed help, she would make sure that that person needed help. That person got the help needed. All the while, when she was suffering herself. It's not about her. It is never about her. And that's why she is so special. With that, Nechama, I would like for you to say a few words. Everyone feel free to eat while she's going.
My story began in 2019. We welcomed our healthy baby boy into the world. With a healthy pregnancy and a smooth birth, shortly after discharge, my symptoms started. In the days leading up to the bris, it was getting harder and harder to breathe. On the night before the bris, I could hardly breathe while laying down, let alone sitting up. I kept telling myself and others it's just a postpartum thing. But in the back of my mind, I knew something was wrong. I didn't want to believe it, and I definitely didn't want to miss my son's bris. So I decided to tough it out. I made it to the bris, but I'm not really sure how. Later that day, I couldn't handle it anymore. I had an oximetry device at home from my grandparents, and I had checked my oxygen levels while sitting up, and it was in the low 80s. At that point, I knew it was time to go to the hospital. To keep calm, I tried to tell myself that if I went to the ER, they would tell me I had pneumonia. And that was because when I took care of my grandfather, he used to get it all the time. And when I breathed then, I sounded exactly the way he used to. I figured they would give me some meds and send me home. Yet I still felt there was something more serious going on. When I went to the hospital, they took me to triage, asked me some questions, and took my blood pressure, which was very high. They did an EKG. The nurse then took my hand, looked me in the eye, put me in a wheelchair, and took me straight back into one of the examination rooms. I will never forget that look in her eyes. I never saw a workup as fast as this one. There were many tests and scans. I kept asking what was wrong, but she kept telling me to wait for the doctor. At that point, we had been in the hospital for a few hours. We hadn't eaten anything since the bris, and both my husband and I were very hungry. I remembered a few days earlier in a community email, I saw a video about the journey of a rabbi and his wife who started a Beaker colon room at the Memorial Regional Hospital. I told my husband to watch the video and call the number listed on it. Rabbi Klein answered the phone, asked us our names and location. 10 minutes later, he walked in the room with a hot 3-course meal and emotional support. He told us to call him anytime, 24/7, for whatever we needed. There was a shift change, but we still had no answers. We asked the nurse what was going on. She said the doctor would be right in. We asked whether it looked like we'd be going home, and she said, "Oh no, you're very, very sick. You're going to be staying," and walked right out of the room. From that moment till today, I never really stopped crying. At that point, my life changed forever. The doctor finally came in and explained that my heart was in failure, and the heart failure team would come and consult with me. Later that evening, the heart failure team came in and explained everything in detail. I was diagnosed with postpartum cardiomyopathy, which is heart failure caused by birth or pregnancy. From what I understood is that it's not that common, and there was not that much information out there, and the exact cause is still unknown. Two of the hardest things taken from this diagnosis was that I couldn't nurse my baby because of the medications that I would be on, and for the next 2 weeks, or possibly longer, I will not be able to see my children. Secondly, I was told that there are 3 equal possible outcomes, future outcomes, with this diagnosis: full recovery, staying the same, or taking a turn for the worst, and needing a heart transplant way down the road, which was the more unlikely scenario, but they couldn't rule it out. The first hospital stay was both mentally draining and physically painful. When I was discharged, I was given an external defibrillator and a slew of medications. This was a lot to swallow and learn. An especially big concern was being left alone with my children. Given a slight possibility that my heart would stop, I would collapse, and my cardiac vest would send me a shock through my body to keep my heart beating. A child's instincts is to climb, touch, or sit on a parent, and if my child did that, they would have been in great danger because the vest would have shocked them as well, and that could have been devastating. From December until Pesach, I was miserable. The medications weren't working. My body was hardly tolerating even the lowest dose. We were constantly lowering it just to keep my heart stable. Since I was continuously in and out of the hospital, my baby didn't know I was his mother. I was hardly ever at home. When I was at home, I was weak, and I could hardly even take a few steps without taking a break, much less be able to hold my son, Maishi, take care of him, and give him the love and care that he needed. The Wednesday before Shabbos Gadol, I was admitted to the hospital because I wasn't able to keep food down for the last week. I was weak and I had severe stomach pains, which turned out to be gallstones. I learned from the doctors that my heart was now working at 20%. I was weak. The weakness of my heart, the doctors say, may have aggravated the gallstones and caused related problems. Yet, because of my conditions, it wasn't safe to remove the gallbladder. I pleaded with the doctors, which I did a lot, because who wants to be in a hospital, to let me go home. On Shabbos, they eventually decided it was safe enough to be discharged. On the following Monday, I insisted on helping my mother for Pesach. I started peeling potatoes. After only a potato and a half, I started to cry. I was too weak to go on. I lay down in bed with my Shoshana, who was 3 at the time. About 15 minutes later, my defibrillator alarm started to go off and vibrating, warning me that it would shock me in 10 seconds. I screamed for help. I felt my heart going into a weird rhythm. The feeling is very hard to explain, but it felt like my life was being drained out of my body. I saw the frightening look on my Shoshana's face, and then, Baruch Hashem, the alarm shut off, and my heart returned to a calmer rhythm. We called the doctors. They told me I must go to the hospital immediately. Saying goodbye to my children was so hard. Deep down, I had this feeling that it was the end of my heart, and I had no idea when I was going to see them again, even though I had some hope I was going to come home soon. There is this song which I walked down during my chuppah. It's a song I sing every night, and it's a song I sing to my children. We sang it together before I left. B'Shem Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Mimini Michal Mismoli Gabriel, Umilfanai Uriel, Umichorai Raphael, Bi'al Roshi Shechin Askel. In the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, may Michal be on my right hand, Gabriel at my left hand, before me Uriel, behind me Raphael, and above my head the divine presence of God. This song has helped me through a lot of physical pain and emotional challenges, and Emirat Hashem will continue to do so. On April 7th, 2020, I was admitted to the step-down cardiac unit. It was Erev Pesach. I had surgery to insert an ICD, sort of pacemaker, into my heart. It was at that point we started talking a lot about transplants, but maybe we still had some time. I felt weak and I was in a lot of pain. Before the first days of Yom Tov were over, I got some very bad news. Eventually, I was able to call my husband. I was not coming home anytime soon. My heart had deteriorated very badly and quickly. In just 2 days, we went from talking about transplants to being critical. I needed a new heart, and we would have to wait an unknown period of time until they found one. I needed immediate major surgery to put a machine called an impella, which would basically take over all heart functions, a kind of life support for the heart. I needed to be transferred to ICU until Hashem found me a new heart. The next morning, there was more hard news. My mother called me in tears. My grandfather was nifter. Many know what a close and special relationship I had with my father's parents. At this point, I started to break down. I felt numb. I asked Hashem many questions, mostly ending with why me? Everything seemed wrong. Why do I deserve this? At this point, I was struggling with my bitachon and emunah. I was trying to stay positive despite the surgeries, the procedures, the tests, the COVID restrictions on visitors, even my husband. And the news that I needed a heart transplant, and now the news of the passing of my grandfather to top it off. It took time to realize, but clearly Hashem was asking something from me. I needed to strengthen myself and my relationship with Hashem. Hashem chose me. He gave me these challenges to use as a tool to become closer to him. He is our Father, and it's his bakasha that he wants us close to him. Once I realized this, even though I felt completely alone at the moment, I understood that Hashem was close, walking next to and holding me the entire time. It's a gift from Hashem, and that I experienced these challenges with the ultimate which ultimately brought me much closer to him. It started with you, Grandpa. I'm sorry I didn't get to hold your hand and say goodbye. I'm sorry you left me knowing I'm in pain. And I'm sorry how much that it hurt you. But you left me to be with the one who can save me. You're not in pain anymore. You are with Hashem now. And I know you're davening for me. Baruch Hashem, the impella surgery was successful. However, from that point on, waiting for my heart was painful, and I was very weak. I kept getting blood clots in my ports. I hardly had the strength to get out of bed. I may have seemed strong to my nurses, but deep down in those brief moments when I was alone, I cried. The hospital staff probably thought I was crazy because my glass doors and curtains always had to be open, so I could hear and see everything. But at night, I was petrified. I needed to see people's faces. I always had the fear that if something would happen, no one would see or hear. Lag BaOmer was approaching, and I've received another phone call. Harav Benziger Tzatzal was nifter. My mother and I just broke out in tears. Those of you that know my family know that we had our fair share of challenges, and Rav Benziger was there for us day in and day out, helping us. But in the last few years of his life, he was not able to. I paused and told my mother, Mommy, now the Rav can help us again, just like he used to. He will daven for me. The next day on Lag BaOmer, while my parents were at the Levaya, I received the most amazing news. They had found me a heart, and in less than 24 hours, I will be going into major surgery. I just felt numb. Honestly, I can't remember much. But there was this one aspect that was of concern. Yes, the heart was a match, but they don't know with 100% certainty until I'm under anesthesia that there's 100% certainty until I'm under anesthesia. There is a chance they will have to wake me and tell me that it wasn't a good match. In the moments leading up to the surgery, I was full of fear. The team was there to take me down. I called my husband and my parents in tears, afraid these were going to be my last words. As I was brought down to the OR, I kept singing my song with tears streaming down my face. As I was placed on the table, I remember seeing how the room looked, felt, and smelled. Thought the amount of people there was just crazy. Before I counted down for the anesthesia, Dr. Wang whispered in my ear, Natalie, I have never done this in my whole career. You are the first I was able to say this to, but this heart is yours. It's going in, and I will see you when you open your eyes. Baruch Hashem, the heart transplant surgery was successful, but I had tubes everywhere. They came out of my neck and my chest. Even the simplest act of walking was so painful, but I was strong, and all I wanted was my family again. I wanted a fresh start. I was up and walking the first moment that I could. It was a huge challenge and took 4 nurses, but I did it. My grandfather's shloshim occurred a few days later. Even though I was so weak, I needed to speak to help me have some closure about his passing. After that, my mother gave me a call to make sure I was okay. And I said yes, because Rav Benziger, Grandpa, my family, the whole community, and people all over the world came together as one to daven for me. I don't know about you, Mommy, but I don't find it a coincidence that when we found out the Rav was nifter, I told you that he would help us again, like he used to help our family. I learned that they found me a heart at the time the Rav's Levaya was starting. I had also learned that my surgery was the next day, that the day would be the same time as the Rav's Gerura. My mother said, Nechama, there's more to it than that. She believed that at the same time that the hospital called Yisrael to tell him that they were now inserting the new heart into me, the Chevra Kadisha was bearing the mace in Yerushalayim. We both cried. I was receiving a gift of life in this world after so many months of suffering. At the very moment a Gadol B'Yisrael was leaving his life in this world. Only Hashem knows how all things are connected. The doctor were so happy with my progress that I went home only 8 days after surgery. I was greeted by a whole block party of music and welcome home signs with lots of friends and family who loved me. I can't express in words the warmth I felt in my new heart. Now, as I stand here, all put together, I am still struggling inside, both emotionally and physically. But Hashem only does what is best for us because he loves us. I stand in front of my Father and my King as tall as I can and give him kavod. With each part of my neshama, my voice cries out to you, Hashem, thanking you for giving me another chance at life and another chance to better myself. For that, I am forever grateful to you. Thank you. Thank you to all the staff at Memorial Region Hospital, the men and women behind the scenes running the hospital, from administration to the house cleaning, from the men and women sanitizing the bedding, to the women who came and cleaned my room every day and greeted me with a smile and told me she's praying for me, to the women who delivered my meals 3 times a day, to the nurses at 6 North Cvcicu, who became my family, went above and beyond my expectations. They were my surrogate mother, father, sister, and brother. They spent their time with me. They were all in it emotionally. They respected me for being a Jew and had a lot of questions about that. My nurses came from every walk in life that you could imagine. I answered them and they shared a sense of awe in my faith. I like to share one of many examples of how exceptional and respectful they were. I was told that in order to have a faster recovery, I needed to walk 2 times a day around the halls before my surgery. I always had to do this with a nurse. I was hooked up to all those machines, and I was so weak most of the time, my head seemed to not be there. If I didn't ever remember to cover my hair or elbows, every single nurse reminded me. They made sure to cover my hair for me, and that my elbows were covered as well. Bottom line, there are no words to give them justice. I want to thank my doctors, Dr. Patsias, Dr. Dimitru, and Dr. Gosain, who spent their time with me listening to every concern I had and answered every question with great detail. They were so thoughtful, dedicated, compassionate, and caring. They even brought me little things from the store that they had thought I might need or like, even a Starbucks coffee, because who likes hospital coffee? I want to thank the community. During the hardest of times, you all came together, said Tehillim for me, made meals, and offered help any way you could. Even people who didn't even have a clue who I was participated. People who were struggling with money gave what they had to make me a meal. People grieving loved ones who had passed from COVID came to help me. It amazed me that even during the hardest of times, no matter what challenges people were going through, our community came together and worked together and did something so special. Thank you, Rabbi Klein and his wife, Esty. Without them, we would have been lost. For the first time we went into the hospital, my husband called him, and he was there within 10 minutes. It was very confusing time, obviously, and he went around from doctor to doctor to help get us a clear picture and to make sure that we got the care he felt we needed. From that point on, they showered us with meals and support. They gave us direction and guidance through the hospital stay, through all the hospital stays and the times in between. During the time I got sick, the Klein family also welcomed us into this world. And with some complications on their end, there was never a shortage of food or care that their family that they gave to their families. They took Healing Heart Speaker Fulham up to heights that you can't even imagine. Just one example how extraordinary the Kleins are. Every single Friday, Mom is right before candle lighting. He goes over to the hospitals, scouts them out to see if any Yidden are there. One example is he goes over to the vans and checks for the magnets in the parking lot to see if there are any people stuck there over Shabbos or in the ER for a few hours that might lead into Shabbos. And if that happens, he will come back after candle lighting and walk over with hot food. They chose to buy a house right next to the hospital for that purpose. Not only do they provide food, but they provide housing and currently have 3 or more properties near surrounding hospitals so loved ones can be close with and commutable to those receiving care, not just for South Florida, but for people coming from all over the world. So if anybody would like to continue my refuah shalema in a special way, I would ask you to please donate to Healing Hearts in my name for a continued refuah shalema. Yisrael, through the toughest of times and through our pain and suffering, we were torn apart. That was our hardest challenge we both had to deal with. Our pain and suffering without each other and alone. That's not how a couple normally goes through challenges. They go through them together, side by side. Yes, I just went through a huge trauma, and there were a lot of pieces to the puzzle that were involved, including you having your patience with me. My PTSD and anxiety, everything caused me to be short and impatient, unlike how I used to be. But you stayed strong, and you reassured me every moment, even when we were still hurting. That there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, and that this heart I now have will be a heart of gold just as much as my last one was. You told me that we just have to keep davening to Hashem and keep doing what he wants from us. Yisrael, I thank you for not giving up on me and not giving up when life got difficult. Thank you for showing me that Hashem and only Hashem runs this world, and we are just here to serve him and to do his will with simcha, to do his will with simcha. My parents juggled work, taking care of my grandparents, constant babysitting, hosting my husband, being there for him emotionally, appointments, my medications, my doctor's appointments, and so many more things, all while the world was in a panic and shut down. The answer was always yes. We'll figure it out. We'll get it done. No matter the task, nothing was too small. Nothing was too big. They had to drive an extra hour out of the way, no problem. They had to watch 3 cranky kids, give them a bath, get them to bed, no problem. Taking care of my children, all while suffering for what I was going through. No one can imagine how much a parent suffers when their child is in pain, yet they stayed strong. My mother would make pictures with my girls every day for me and daven with them. When they asked about mommy, my mother and father would comfort them. Every morning, Abba would daven with my little Maishi. He would fall asleep next to him in his bouncer, clenching his talus in his hand. What a tzaddik he will be. Mommy and Abba, I'm so grateful Hashem chose you to be my parents. The love and care you give your children is selfless. You never ask why or what. You would just give your shirt off your back or the roof over your head for us, without the blink of an eye. Emir Hashem, I hope to stay strong and healthy to be able to take my children by the hand and lead them the way that you taught me. I love you and thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hagomel l'chayavim tovos shekmalam mi kol tov. Mi shekmalam kol tov hu yimel kol tov salah.
After this, we're done. Just one last thing. I'm sure you have noticed that my mother-in-law wasn't able to make it tonight. Unfortunately, her mother has suddenly become very sick, and my mother-in-law had to go to New York to take care of her. She's in very much need of our tefillot. So if you can please stand and we'll say a couple of tehillim for Tzipor Sheindel Bas Nechama Malka.
John. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Would you like to say I don't know if everybody can hear me, but thank you all for joining me and my simcha. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Mazel tov. Thanks you. Say mazel tov.
Thanks for letting us know, Nechama. That was great.
Hi.